Jess from Cook Smarts, and I think we are in segment 8 of the tour of my kitchen, this multi-part series that I'm doing. I'm giving you a behind-the-scenes look of the space that I spend a lot of time in. We've talked about what I keep in the pantry, and the previous cooking tools segment we talked about the pots and pans that I think you should have. In this segment we're staying with cooking tools, and we're going to talk about the kitchen tools. So these are kind of like the smaller tchotchkes that I use in the kitchen that I find to be critical to the success of my meals. All right, so let me first talk about these tongs. These tongs are probably the most used items. It's really the tongs and these wooden spoons. These are like an extension of my hands. You know, these are things that help toss things, help turn things, help push things around when you're sauteing. So definitely get them. These tongs have this kind of silicone head that is pretty resistant to heat, so they haven't worn down a lot despite the years of usage. And they have this little nice locking mechanism that is not working right now, but normally it does. Just know that. All right, so use these, and you can also use them to easily like toss a salad, to toss things together. These wooden spoons are not expensive. You know, they're like $2 for this pack that I've got. You can see some aging in them, but they are really just great. They don't nick they don't nick the surfaces that you're cooking on, and just make sure not to put them in the dishwasher, because it's not good to put wood in the dishwasher. So get some of these. And then I always keep a spatula around. This kind of helps to, when you need to scrape something, you know, sauce or batter or something, this is very helpful. Okay, so along those lines, other things that are kind of like the extension of your hands. This is just a classic little fish flipper. This one, you know, I use this to turn pancakes, to flip over a piece of protein when it's searing. And you can use the spatula, and you can use the wooden spoons for that. This just is a little bit wider, so it can scoop underneath a larger piece of protein to really flip it over. Okay. This is a strainer. This is really good for frying. I don't do a lot of frying, but once or twice a year I make latkes or something, and these are good for picking them up. What I mainly use this for is actually blanching vegetables. So I will get a huge pot of water going and just blanch vegetable after vegetable. So I will blanch broccoli, then I'll put in cauliflower, then I'll put in carrots or whatever, and then I get to use all that water actually as a vegetable stock, which is great. And so to fish those things out, this is what I use. I also use this to fish out noodles sometimes when I'm trying to get, move noodles from one pot to another. This is what this little handy thing is for. Okay, other tools, and I don't know why I didn't start with this, but of course is a knife. You need a knife. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's a whole video dedicated to knife skills and such. Get yourself a good knife, keep it sharp, be kind to it, don't put it in the dishwasher. There are lots of like cheaper knives these days on the market that are also quite good. So it's not about buying an expensive knife, it's about just like loving your knife. You know, it's like I drive a Honda Civic. That thing has run forever, and it's gonna stay on running forever because I take it in to get tune-up. So whatever you get, just make sure you maintain it and don't treat it terribly. Okay. Okay. So other things. I know this is weird, but I'm gonna say you need a can opener. There are some houses I've been to that have terrible can openers, and I've spent way too much time trying to open a can. Get a good can opener. On the same note, get a good peeler. Don't get the cheapest one. Get a mid-range one. You don't need the highest one, but those things should last you forever if you buy a decent one. My peeler is missing, so if you know where it is, please return it to me. Otherwise, I will have to buy a new one. Other things, I have these 2 micro planes. I use these for grating cheese, grating cheese and ginger and lemon zest. That's the primary uses of these things. I do those things enough that I do buy these tools just for that. You could, you use these things to get a little lemon zest on something, which adds a nice brightness to it. You can use this to, rub a piece of ginger on it, and that grates the ginger up nicely, so you don't have like ginger bits in whatever you're cooking. So that's what these things are for. I find them to be quite useful. Maybe you won't. A citrus squeezer. I finish most things. If you watch the Pantry Essentials, that last segment I talked about lemons and limes. This thing really helps get all the juice out of a lemon or a lime without getting any of the pulp or seeds and such. So one of these things where you basically put the, you slice the citrus in half, you put it in face down, and then you squeeze down on it. Gets all the juice out. So this little silicone pastry brush, I use this thing a lot, not for pastries, but I use them for cooking. So a lot of times to like spread oil, you know, to distribute oil onto a pan, to spread oil onto a piece of bread that I'm toasting, to put an egg wash on some pastry for a pot pie. That's the primary use of this brush. And I also use it to put a marinade on meats and such. That's what this brush is for. This little handy tool, I hadn't seen it until I did one of my cooking lessons. I think it's pretty nifty. It's just it's a pastry scraper, but I don't use it actually for scraping pastries. I use it for getting burnt stuff off of pans and pots and stuff. So if you ever get any gunk on your pans or pots, you can use this to like scrape it off, and that's what this thing does. It really helps you cleaning up. I think the pastry ones are usually a little bit more flexible. This one's not. It's pretty hard. So I guess this is not a pastry scraper. This is really for when you get burnt stuff stuck on your stuff. Okay. You should be able to get these at the counter of like any kitchen store as you're checking out. They usually put those in a little box by the checkout. So there are a couple of little like strainer things. So I use this. This is a great strainer. I use this to like rinse a can of beans. You know, if I'm doing just like if I'm defrosting shrimp or something, I put the shrimp in here and then into a bowl, because then I can just lift it up and drain everything out and give it a rinse. So these are really cheap mesh strainers. They have you'll end up using them a lot more than you think. So these are really great. And this is a colander, similar to, you know, does the same thing as a strainer does, but if you need something that's a little bit like more substantial, and you got like a big pot of pasta, you know, clearly you probably want a larger colander like this. You might be able to skip the colander altogether if you get yourself just a salad spare. I find myself using the colander in my salads. I find myself using this little colander in the salad spinner. It comes as part of the salad spinner more frequently as my colander. So I often, you know, will just like use this to wash a bunch of vegetables and then pull this up, and then all the gunk drains out. And then you can spin it dry with this little tchotchke. Okay, I also recommend, of course, a cutting board. This is an essential. You need a cutting board. I like plastic cutting boards. I know that some people don't, but I think they're great because you can throw them in the dishwasher. If you are doing chicken on this thing, you probably want to throw it in the dishwasher. They're like really disinfected, especially if you have children. So I like this one. It's made by OXO. It's got little grippy feet on it. It grips the counter nicely. If you have a cutting board that doesn't grip your counter nicely, just get a damp kitchen towel, fold it in half, put it underneath, and that will help form a grip for your cutting board. So you can use a wood cutting board. Don't ever buy those like pebbly glass ones. I don't even know what those things are for. But just find one that's like not gonna warp terribly, and you're set. All right, and then last but not least, I have prep bowls. I think everyone should have some prep bowls. I've been to homes that do not have prep bowls, and it just makes things a lot messier. So I find myself trying to be really organized in the kitchen when I can be, so I don't make a mess of it, because I do a lot of cooking in here. I don't know, prep bowls really help me do that. So I chop something on that nice grippy cutting board with my well-maintained knife, and then I put it into a prep bowl. If I'm not making something right away and needs to go in the fridge, these prep bowls have lids. This is not the right lid for this one, but you get the idea, and then you can put it in the fridge. So I have a whole set of prep bowls, and they are very, very helpful. I also keep a couple of glass of these Pyrex measuring, liquid measuring cups. I've got a 1 quart, which is 4 cups, and then this 1 cup. And I find myself making just a lot of sauces, vinaigrettes, straight up in one of these, and then pouring it over whatever I need to get it on. No need to get another bowl out, and save yourself some dishwashing. And then, of course, along the same lines, of course, you're probably going to need some measuring cups and measuring spoons. I think most households have that, so if you do any baking, I'm sure you have those things already. So really the last kind of kitchen tool, and some people might even call this more of a cooking tool, kind of like an extension of a pot and pan, is baking sheets. I think most homes have this because they bake cookies. I don't think I've maybe baked cookies like once or twice on these sheets in all the years I've owned them, but I roast vegetables on them, I throw proteins on them, I make pizzas on these things. And so I would suggest getting, there's some really good like commercial duty ones. This one is not one of those, but the commercial duty ones tend to warp less in the oven. But if you do hear like a snapping sound in the oven when you're roasting vegetables at high heat, that's normal. Most of these pans do a little warping, and then they return back to their natural shape after you take them out of the oven. This is again a cooling rack. Most people use these for cookies. I don't. What I use them really for is, let's say you are making burgers or meatballs, and I like to give those a nice sear on the stovetop first to kind of like give a little bit of caramelization to the outside, make sure everything is going to stay, you know, cohesive, adhered to one another. And then I put it onto this cooling rack that's in the baking sheet, and then I throw it in the oven. So if there's any fat in in that burger, or in the chicken thighs or wings or whatever, it can just drip out from below. It'll drip out and kind of hit the baking sheet, versus like having whatever you're cooking kind of sit in that fat, and then it ends up feeling just greasy. So that's what was really helpful about these cooling racks. So those are my kitchen tools for the most part. You know, but I might have a couple things here and there, like, you know, I've got a ladle that I didn't show you, but you know, whenever I'm cooking, this stuff really takes care of me 90% of the time. These are the things that I'm really reaching for that help me do the cooking that I need to do. All right, so in the next segment, I'm going to talk to you really quickly about appliances, the kitchen appliances that you might want to own. I don't own a lot, but again, the ones that I own I really love and I use a lot. So stay tuned for that.